small 800,000-ton volume and refused to quote the coal movement. In 2004, we were short at 20. In 2004, we were short at 20. In 2004, we were short at 26% of the coal under one of these contract movements. Dairyland suffered damages of $7 million to buy replacement coal from other sources. To continue shipments of this important source of low sulfur coal beyond the expiration of our contract in 2005, Dairyland was forced to abandon its claim of damages against that carrier. Our experience is not unique. Others have similar tales of woe, but it is indeed a great time to be a railroad. Next. The green portion of these bars shows the contribution of the fuel surcharge to Dairyland's new rates in 06 and 07. Fuel was included in the prior contract rates, and there was no separate surcharge before 2006 for Dairyland. The fuel surcharges added 17.2% in 06 and 16.5% year-to-date in 07 to Dairyland's underlying base rates. The AAR's latest RCAF basket of rail cost has fuel at 16% of total rail cost. Dairyland's base rates alone increased 69% in 2006, a multiple more than 4 times fuel's 16% contribution to the RCAF basket. The huge fuel surcharge now paid by Dairyland over and above the 69% increase to the base rates is simply indefensible. This fuel surcharge is simply another source of profit for the railroads disguised as cost recovery. Carriers are leaning on Renaissance shippers to pay the otherwise stranded high fuel cost for legacy shippers. It is indeed a very good time to be a railroad. Return to the 2 slides before, please. Thank you for your attention to this story. My recommendations for remedial action are included in my written statement, and I would be happy to respond to your questions later.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Herndon.
Thank you. On behalf of Energy Services and Energy Operating Companies, I would like to thank the board for holding this hearing and allowing those with a particular interest in this topic to address the board regarding efficiency and reliability of transportation of energy supply. We agree with the board's assessment that the rail transportation is a vital link to the energy supply chain, which is crucial to this nation's economic stability and the national security. However, Energy is not convinced that the current rail transportation system provides a reliable and efficient mode of transportation. Entergy owns 5 coal-fired generating units totaling just under 3,900 megawatts of capacity through 2 of its operating companies, Entergy Arkansas and Entergy Gulf States. 4 of these units are located in Arkansas at the White Bluff and Independence Station. The 5th unit is located in Louisiana at the Roy S. Nelson Steam Electric Station. All 5 units were designed for PRB coal, and with the exception of few small test burns, exclusively burned Powder River Basin through 2005. In 2007, shipments of coal from the PRB joint line are estimated to average 1 million tons a day. To meet this demand, 69 empties and 69 loaded trains per day are required to travel the joint line. This production supports a substantial part of total coal-fired generation, which makes up about 50% of the total electrical generation in this country. Any chronic, long-term significant loss of this coal-fired generation could result in major electrical power shortages. Even short-term transportation disruptions, depending on the number of and frequency of those disruptions, can affect how a utility views rail service reliability. These disruptions can lead to slower velocities on the railroad, increased derailments, increased use of force majeure declarations, and the removal of service performance standards for the railroads. All of these events have the effect of reducing deliveries. Based on data supplied by railroads and data supplied from Energy's own experience, the rail transportation system is operating at slower speeds and the number of derailments are increasing. The gross cycle time, for all that don't know what gross cycle time, that's the total time it takes to make a complete cycle of loading a train, delivering it, and bringing that train back to the mine. to energy plants have increased 3 to 4% each year since 2002. In Arkansas, the railroads have provided an additional 3 to 5 train sets of their own equipment in order to meet our coal nominations. Cycle times haven't gone down, but they've added more equipment. Without the railroad supply of train sets, Arkansas coals would be subject to rapidly depleting levels. At Nelson, current growth cycle time has resulted in delivery of only 85% of Entergy's nomination. In addition, according to railroad's own reporting data, we find continual decline in per quarter on-time performance by both Western railroads. UP is also reporting that unit train speeds has declined by an average of 1.6 miles per hour since between March 2006 and June of 2007. Finally, based on data provided by the railroads to the Federal Railroad Administration, UP reports that the number of derailments caused by defective tracks increased by 1.5% per year between 1990 and 2006. Derailments involving energy supply trains increased on an average of 6% between 1995 and 2007. Recent practice suggests that the railroads will be relying more heavily on the use of force majeure claims to excuse poor performance. From 1995 to 2004, the railroads made only 8 force majeure claims to Entergy for a total of 32 days. Since 2004, the number of force majeure claims have increased to 23 through May of 2007 for a total of 417 force majeure days claimed. The greater reliance on force majeure claims further undermines the reliability of coal rail transportation services. It is also becoming evident from both the public pricing documents and other relevant pricing documents that the Western railroads are moving away from bilateral negotiated contracts between shippers and carriers and moving towards take it or leave it offerings. These new service documents contain little, if any, performance standards applicable to the railroad. Based on Entergy's own data, there is a direct correlation between reduced performance standards and increased cycle times. At one of our plants, the cycle time that we were told to use for planning purposes following the expiration of the existing transportation agreement requires us to provide 3 additional train sets in addition to the 4 train sets already in service to deliver the same amount of coal. If this same level of performance is applied across all customers taking PRB coal, train sets currently in service would have to increase by 75% in order to move the 360 million tons forecasted for 2007. This increase does not provide extra equipment capacity and thus would only add to more congestion and further degradation of transit times. How do decreased performance standards result in greater efficiencies? The answer is plain and simple. It doesn't. It is Entergy's belief that without outside influence, rail delivery of coal will become more unreliable and less efficient resources for utilities. Is there some influence that this board can exert to keep the rail transportation energy sources reliable and efficient? We'd like to suggest that the board could provide greater oversight on railroad performance as it relates to commodities critical to this nation's security. This can be accomplished by developing specific performance matrices that will provide board and shipper with early warning notices which will allow transportation issues to be addressed in their developmental stages. These metrics should be reported and made available to the public. To make any matrix valuable, there needs to be accountability. There should be some benchmark established for these matrices to allow all stakeholders to identify when these performance levels are below an acceptable standard. For example, it may be possible to identify system velocity levels that would warrant service review. Alternatively, service review could be triggered by matrices relating to train loadings or dwell time statistics. Other measurements that could be developed could be in the following areas: comparison of actual deliveries to requested deliveries, unit train velocities, the number of unit trains or cars in service for a given commodity, the loadings or the number of traffic on primary routes, the number of empties waiting for loads. And I have here, since the board has established the Energy Reliability Committee, Energy Advisory Committee, that committee could be charged with the responsibility to identify and recommend measurements that would provide STB with energy market and the energy market participants with valuable information without overburdensome to the railroads. In conclusion, rail deliveries of coal are an integral part of electrical reliability. The adequacy of long-term coal deliveries is fundamental to the cost-effective operations of bulk power electric systems. The development and implementation of robust reporting matrix will allow for greater oversight of railroad performance. As stated earlier, railroads must be held accountable for some level of performance before the electric generating industry and other energy resources can rely on the service. Thank you for your careful considerations of these comments.
Thank you, Mr. Herndon. Mr. Richards.
Vice Chairman Buttry and Commissioner Mobley, thank you for allowing us to comment today. I'm going to make my comments brief today. I just did want to provide a few facts in terms of really our evaluation of performance. And I do want to state up front that our inventories are not in crisis at any of the plants that we do serve today, just to let everybody know that. Just want to say I'm CEO of Western Fuels Association. We're a national fuel supply cooperative. We're a not-for-profit entity. We buy and deliver coal for our members who are typically G&T generation transmission cooperatives and municipalities. We were established in 1976. Some original members were based in electric and